Hey everyone, how's it going? So today we're going to be talking about the Star Wars The Clone Wars series. Now, I've previously recorded a video on this, but I found out my phone could shoot in 4K, so I decided to record in 4K, and then it took me 6 hours to get to about 40% loaded, and yeah, I decided that was not okay, and then I realized 4K doesn't matter if your display isn't also in 4K, so just kind of defeated the purpose of what I was trying to do. So now we're re-recording this. I missed a day already with an upload. I missed a couple days already with uploads. Just craziness. Last week was pretty wild, and then I've been dealing with technical stuff. I've had this microphone for a while now, and I just figured out how to make it work. So I'm really excited about that. The audio quality should be a lot clearer, and I'm super happy about that. So what I want to get into is the series at large. So the season 7 just ended, which is the conclusion to the series. That's how it was promoted. That's what they said when they first brought back the show, was that this was going to be the wrap it up. Now, I might do 2 separate videos on this because I want to do one that's basically like a review and summary of the series, and then but with no spoilers. And then I want to get into one with like a lot of like the pointing out what I think is weird about the continuity, and then obviously spoilers for the last season and things like that. Although I do believe if something goes straight to streaming, if you don't watch it within the first week, I mean, it's kind of your own fault. Especially since they're releasing weekly episodes. Like if you care about if you really want to watch it and you really care about it and you don't want it to get spoiled, you'll sign up for the streaming service and you'll keep up with it. So I think spoilers for this kind of thing in particular, like it's the difference between this and like an entire season getting uploaded. I think those are two different things. But weekly episodes is just like weekly TV. So yeah, moving on, we're going to actually talk about the series now. So I think I have mixed feelings about the series. I really do. I feel like as a whole, it's incredibly unnecessary and just creates more contradictions and just kind of weird spots in general into the overall continuity. And that's why a lot of times I'll have like a negative mindset towards things taking place in the past. Because it's like, unless you intentionally create it in such a way that it fits perfectly into the existing continuity, it's just going to be really weird. And that's what this show is. So the show kicks off, it's obviously between episodes 2 and 3. And the show isn't actually the starting point. It came out as a movie first, I believe a theatrical release, and then it was brought in as a show later on. Now, to be like extra picky about it, they never explain where Skywalker gets like the scar or whatever, which is like a prominent thing. Like after, like that's one of the big things you notice about his character after the second episode. They also never show him getting knighted, which was a pretty big deal. Which for most Jedi is a pretty big deal. I mean, you don't see Kenobi getting knighted either, but you understand that Qui-Gon literally tells the council like he's ready, send him to the trials. So I think that's at least something that we could have seen, especially since all 6 of the original movie, well, the prequels and the original trilogy, all 6 movies are the rise and fall of Darth Vader. So those are like some of the kind of important moments of Anakin's journey that they could have fleshed out, but they decided not to. Overall, at large, this series turns out to be more about Ahsoka than any other character, especially as this series goes on. Like initially, it's just random stories and Clone Wars. Like, so you get an episode with Yoda and the clones. You get like a couple different episodes. You get different Jedi get different spotlights at different times. Like I think there's one about Ki-Adi-Mundi and like the various other Jedis, and then. Yeah, so like I said, the series, and I feel like they really wrapped it up in season 6 in such a way that it was okay. It wasn't like the most satisfying conclusion, but what satisfying conclusion can you give, really? Especially when there's something directly after what's happening, So season 7 ends more with Yoda doing more training and stuff, which is kind of weird to me because it implies that Qui-Gon knew more than Yoda, and just on the surface, not knowing enough about Qui-Gon's character, I know he's explained more in Extended Universe, Legacies, whatever, Legends, who cares? But from what we know from Qui-Gon, if you just watch the movies and just watch this cartoon, it makes it really weird to imply that he is more in tune with the Force and has more knowledge about the Force than Yoda, considering how old Yoda is. I mean, at some point in the series, I think they say he's like 800 years old or something crazy. Like, it's wild to think that a normal human Jedi would know more about the Force than Yoda, which, poof, crazy. So that's how season 6 ends, and then season 7, I have mixed feelings about, because I describe it to people as a valley, right? It's pretty good, and then it tanks, and then it gets pretty good again. So the first 4 episodes, they introduce us to the Bad Batch, which is clones who mutated differently. So they earn the title the Bad Batch, and then they each kind of specialize in like a different aspect of combat and stuff like that. And then the next 4 episodes is some side story about Ahsoka and 2 smuggler females that she meets on the bottom of Coruscant. Like, they don't, in no way, shape, or form does the things that those characters do affect literally anything. Like, it's just some side story about like those females in Ahsoka. And what it is it's a bridge to I forget her name, but one of the sister of the Queen of Mandalore from earlier in the series. And it leads to them into the Siege of Mandalore, which in the extended universe or whatever is right after the Siege of Mandalore, Ahsoka left the Order. However, that's just kind of weird, because the last 4 episodes is about the Siege of Mandalore, obviously. You get a few fight scenes with Darth Maul and Ahsoka, and it's like, did I need that? Nah. Is it cool to watch? It was a pretty good fight, but I mean, people were on Twitter, Facebook, or whatever, just blowing it out of proportion. Like, it was pretty cool, but it wasn't the best. We saw this happen with The Mandalorian, right? New Star Wars content that's not the sequels, and everybody just blows it out of the water. Like, it's the best thing that's happened since, like, sliced bread. And that's just people, like, I understand some people like the sequels. A lot of people did not. This content is not the sequels. And people are just blowing it out of proportion because it's something Star Wars that's not the sequels. And honestly, that's like, it's not going to age well. Like, you're going to watch it later on and it's going to be like, yeah, that was pretty good, but I remember it being a lot better. I feel like that's what people are going to be saying about a lot of the Star Wars content, because they're blowing out of proportion right now. I don't think it's going to age well. And since I decided not to do spoilers this time, the ending does not feel conclusive. The last 2 episodes was it 2 or 3 episodes? Yeah, I think there's just the last 2 episodes are just kind of like, okay. And then the finale, like the ending, is like, this is not conclusive whatsoever. This doesn't give me any indication of what's going to happen in the future, especially since we already know Rex and Ahsoka reappear in the Rebels cartoon. And at the end of that cartoon, they're both still alive. So, I mean, the things that happen in this episode are it's just funny, you know? I think if they would have just released it, like, obviously they can't go back and unrelease everything. That's just, they can't. But I feel like if they would have done this season, and, like, I don't know if it got canceled or if the show just got dropped or what happened or why they decided to bring it back. I don't know any of the specifics. But if instead of ending season 6 the way they did the ending for season 7, cutting out the middle 4 episodes, of course, I feel like it would have been a lot better to do that and then do the Rebels cartoon, or even, the Rebels cartoon and then the Mandalorian, because that's how the timeline works out. You get The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, the Clone Wars cartoon, Revenge of the Sith, Rebels, Solo, and Rogue One fit in there somewhere. And then you have the original trilogy, and then you have the Mandalorian. So there's just the way that things are being released and how they're fitting them in and things like that. I mean, we know Rosario Dawson got casted as Ahsoka for the Mandalorian, so that's even further proof that it's just everything they're doing is just so inconsequential. And like, okay, I'll say this, and this is going to be a hot take, and there's probably going to be people that might disagree with this, but the only reason that people like Ahsoka is because she's a female Anakin. Really think about what I just said. Because everything that Ahsoka does is something that Anakin would do. And that's pointed out throughout the series is, oh, that's something I would do, or she learned from me, or this or that, or this or that. Ahsoka is just what would happen, or how Anakin would be had he not been turned to the dark side. So Anakin without Palpatine's influence is essentially what Ahsoka is. Nothing more, nothing less. You can argue this or that, but that's really what it boils down to. So as a whole, right, I enjoy the show, but in no way am I saying this is some of the best Star Wars content out there or anything like that. The show is enjoyable. I just wish they would give, in the earlier seasons, they would have gotten more creative, or as a series at large, maybe not focus so much on the clones and focus more on other things, because I mean, we know what the clones do. We've seen Revenge of the Sith, Order 66, and then none of the clones ever matter again except for Rex and, the people that he runs around with on his little, thing that they're in the Rebels cartoon, right? There's like 5 of them, if that. So, I mean, building those relationships with the clones and everything like that, especially introducing the Bad Batch in season 7, which when we know there's no more Clone Wars content coming out, what was the point of introducing 4 new clones, like four very cool clones at that? So overall, I think it's a good show. I think it's cool, but fitting it into the overall continuity is just kind of weird, and that's how it is with like pretty much everything that Disney's produced since they acquired Star Wars. That's just the reality of things. Even when they tried to adapt Legends content into the sequel trilogy, it didn't do that great. Regardless if you liked them or not, it does a lot of weird things to the overall continuity. Which speaking of that, I guess that'll be another video. We're just going to go over the Star Wars continuity as far as the movies and the side spin-off stories are, because I think that would be a pretty fun video. And then we can discuss. I'll make another video about how I would have done the sequel trilogy different. And I think that'll be a pretty fun video. Maybe I'll call up with people and get some guest stars on, and we can actually bounce ideas off each other. And I think that would be pretty fun. Please let me know if you want to see anything like that specifically or whatever. Leave a comment, whatever. And if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.